It's 5:58, councillors.
John will have to speak from the corner there when
I'll just sit back well.
thank you. Green was live and orange is thumbs up. There you go. A lot of stress about that this week, Heather.
Councillors, welcome to our meeting tonight. We have one speaker to address the forum, Mr. John Ross, and I invite you to come forward. Mr. Ross, come over to the speaker here. I just have to remind you that you can speak for 5 minutes. You'll get a ding-a-ling at 4:30 minutes. Hopefully we'll all be able to hear the noise. So far away. It's over to you. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you for giving me the opportunity of speaking. I think this session is very appropriate to have, and it keeps the councillors and staff in touch with what ratepayers think. 18 years ago when we moved into Henty, I was talking to Max Davidson, who was a real estate agent who knew more about real estate in Henty than anyone. He said, "You've got a very good block there behind you. It's the worst block in Henty, and no one will ever want to build on it." And now we're discussing it today because we're not only wanting to build on it once, but trying to build on it twice. This block was sold to Dan Hoban on the 22nd of May 2006 for $23,000. And I was advised by Bradley Peach, which was the site of a proposed building, on the 6th of June 2007. I did not object, and Harold Schiller next door did not object. It was drawn, the diagram he had, the house was nearly in the middle of the block. Hoban deceived neighbours and council by mirror reversing the plan and pushing it 18 metres approximately to the back of the block. Thought it must have been a slab of the shed when Bradley Peach was there and they were pouring it. It was so far from where the plan was that we'd been given. If the building had been put where the plan said, there was a possibility, there'd be no possibility of dividing it in two. The object of Zone RU5 Village is to protect the amenity of residents. This has not been done. It certainly detracts from the amenity of the area. Harold Schiller, who owned the house on the other side of this block, brought the house back for only $5,000 more than he sold it 12 or 13 years ago. This shows how the values were stagnated by being next to this slum. Local ratepayers losing thousands in the value of property, and that'll be the case if this is allowed to go ahead. Large blocks is what people want in country towns, and I remember Denise Osborne saying here several years ago that Gindra wasn't going to have blocks of less than 1,200 metres. They had to be that big or more because that was what made the town in the atmosphere is what it is. And that is the same for Henty and all the other towns in the Shire. All developments or subdivisions must comply with the council standard for road design. Brian Klempley was made to jump through numerous processes to subdivide only 150 or 100 to 150 metres from this site, which has no drainage, no curb and guttering, and you can do as you like. Council does not permit the use of laneways as a primary means of accessing an allotment. The laneway already being used makes it okay, it appears, in this case for Lot 3. Does this mean that people breaking council requirements can continue to do so, living in caravans in town or on blocks without a building permit, taking firewood from the roadside or aggregate for cementing, or dumping rubbish on the council land? Does this then become legal because they do it regularly? I don't think so, and this is the same reason why this house on the back of this block should not be allowed to go ahead when it has no road access. It's only a laneway which is full of potholes. If you vote this in, it sets up a dangerous precedent for creating environment to medium and high density housing, and will destroy the rural ambience of eventually all the towns and villages throughout the Shire. There are numerous blocks available on council land on the Yankee Crossing Road, so there's no shortage of blocks in Henty. And Dale McCready, who I spoke to yesterday, he wishes to subdivide his whole property east of Henty. He joins the houses in the east side of Henty, and it's his superannuation block for retiring on, and he wishes to sell the whole of his place for either house blocks or 5 acre or whatever's in demand. But his whole place is for sale at the right price, at the right time when there's no red tape. That's pretty well all. Thank you, Madam Chair and Mayor. And has anyone got any questions?
Any questions, councillors? No, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ross,
Thank you,
for your
Madam Mayor.
presentation. I declare the ordinary meeting open of the Greater Hume Council. In accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice, this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Council's website for public information. At present today, you are all reminded, by speaking you are agreeing to your view and comments being recorded and published. You are also reminded that if and when speaking, you are respectful to others and must use appropriate language. Greater Hume Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during this council meeting. I invite Pastor Klemke to please come forward and lead us in prayer this evening. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thank you, Madam Mayor and the councillors, for this great privilege and opportunity it is to open the meeting in prayer. So let us pray. Father, we thank you for our Greater Hume Shire. We thank you for a great place it is to live. And it's all because of the people here you've got here to help make this place better. Father, we pray today for this meeting, especially give the councillors and the Mayor wisdom discernment, and help them to make right choices and right decisions over any matter that gets discussed today. And Father, we just pray, Lord, that you will help them and guide them. Also pray for their families, protect them in every way, and their businesses and their jobs that they go home to. Father, it is so great to be here. It's so great here to ask you to help us in this meeting, and we thank you that you can be part of it, and we pray a blessing on this meeting today. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people, and I pay my respect to their elders past and present. We don't have any apologies or applications for leave of absence, so I'll move on. Item number 5, confirmation of
I'll move
the
those minutes.
Councillor Hicks and Councillor Quinn moved and seconded. Both of those?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Any comments or questions, councillors? Prepared to vote to receive those? All in favour? Carried. Thank you. The action report. If you have any items, page and item number, please. Are there any? No. If there are no questions or comments, we might move on. We have 2 disclosures of interest.
Yes, Madam Mayor, from Councillor Hicks and the notice of motion, the first notice of motion, and also for corporate community services item 4.
Thank you. We have a mayoral minute which I would like to read. It's regarding the passing of Mrs. Gondola Holbrook. Mrs. Gondola Holbrook passed away on New Year's Eve at her home in the village of Steinfeld in Austria. Gondola Helene Feldner was born in Austria in 1914. She married Norman Holbrook VC in 1952, and the couple lived in England until his death on the 3rd of July 1976, a few days short of his 88th birthday. Norman and Gondola first visited the town named after him in 1956, and their last visit together was in 1975. In 1982, Gondola presented Norman's Victoria Cross and other World War I medals to the town. Her incredible generosity to the town of Holbrook was the impetus behind the HMAS Otway casing being installed in the Germantown Park. She travelled to Australia for the dedication and the Submarine Squadron Freedom of Entry Parade in 1997 and was made an honorary citizen of Holbrook. And her comment was, "I think this is the most important thing that has ever happened to me." Isn't that an amazing statement? Mrs. Holbrook told the Border Mail, "I don't feel like a visitor anymore, now I am a resident." On 1 November 2020, Gondola celebrated her 106th birthday. Gondola was a marvellous person, a great benefactor to the people of Holbrook and the Shire of Holbrook and to the Great Hume Shire as well. Her generosity was vast, with a sizeable donation to help finish the HMAS Otway construction. Later she helped with the completion of the hologram in the museum, where she tells her husband's story of the B-11's incredible journey in and out of the Dardanelles Strait. A special photograph of Gondola was taken on her 100th birthday, which shows her draped in a beautiful yellow woolen knee rug, which was actually made in Tasmania, and it was absolutely magnificent, which became part of the Yellow Submarine project. Holbrook residents will always remember Gondola with great affection as a very special lady. And I also would just, before I move on, I'd just like to make a comment about the passing of the Mayor of Cobar, Councillor Lillian Brady. who was aged 90, I think, and she passed away about 3 weeks ago. And she was a very colourful and an incredible person, and well known for her very colourful, not only her clothing, but her colourful statements, made quite loudly and prominently. And she was a fantastic advocate for her town. So I also note her passing. Now we have a notice of motion. Item number 1, consideration of Culcairn Solar Farm by the Independent Planning Commission. And that has been submitted by Councillor Parker. Would you like to expand on that?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think that there needs to be great consideration when dealing with these matters, and I feel that we possibly haven't made strong enough our concerns about the project, so thought it was necessary to do the notice of motion.
Any comments, councillors? Yeah, well, I need a mover and seconder. Do you wish to move?
Yes, please.
Move Councillor Parker and second Councillor O'Neill. Do you wish to make any comment? Councillors, I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Quinn?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there's 2 or 3 reasons why I couldn't support this motion. They recognise the loss of amenities. You've got to be very careful what you wish for in life. I can see not far down the track hay sheds and silos which are reflective will upset people, and people will be complaining about that. The land we're talking about at present, in 2016, ibises paddled through the Gondola. That's how wet it was. It's far from being what they call exceptional agricultural country. And I suppose the one thing that disappoints me is I wonder how many people in this room have taken the time to have a look at this land that's involved in the Culcairn Solar Farm. The third part about it is that Councillor O'Neill has seconded the motion. Several people from South Ward have approached me over the Glenellan Solar Farm rescission motion, and they complained and they suggested that I should report it to council that they think that Councillor O'Neill might have an interest. According to those people,
I would like to object to that.
some of her cousins have been campaigning with some sort of formal structured list to oppose it. And I'm just presenting it, and I said, look, if you've got real problems with council, you talk to ICAC, not to the council staff or the councillors. So there are 3 reasons why, briefly, I'm opposing this notice of motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Quinn, I think you need to retract the statement involving Councillor O'Neill. Now, it may or may not be true, but I just would prefer that you retract that particular part of the statement you made.
I think I just reported, Madam Mayor, what ratepayers have told me.
I know, but I think if the ratepayers are concerned, they need to deal with it, not you, and not in this forum.
As a representative of a ratepayer, I should bring what they asked me to bring to council. That's all. I've just presented it on the table.
Well, I'm disappointed that you've mentioned a particular name, because I don't think that's necessary. Councillors, do we have any other comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I was fortunate to attend a meeting in Culcairn last Thursday night. It had nothing to do with council, but I am a member of New South Wales Farmers, and therefore I did accept an invitation to attend. I didn't speak at the meeting, I simply listened. And listening to the meeting, there's a lot of local people who are still quite adamant that they haven't had a proper hearing with any of the proponents in solar. and in this case particularly the Culcan one. Now, most of us recognise that the horse has bolted, however we'd still like to have a say that the company themselves haven't recognised the loss of amenity of many of these landholders, and you've got to remember that this is for 30 plus years. In that time a lot of people will have passed, a lot of people will have handed their properties on or gifted it to relatives, whatever the case may be. Unfortunately this solar farm is going to detract in the whole district to the amenity of what these people are accustomed to. We've got to remember that most of these people, their families have spent over 150 of the past years building their farms up to what they are. I don't agree with the statement by Councillor Quinn that the land is worthless. You only have to look at what the fuel huts have produced off the same land in the last 3 or 4 years to realise that it is profitable and it is very good land.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
I would like to just formally object to Councillor Quinn's comments. If people at Gondola, who obviously are the ones who I know quite well, if they have a problem with me, then I am sure that they would actually come and speak to me about that. So how would you explain the fact that I've objected to all of them? I'm certainly not related to everyone that lives in the Shire. And for your information, the two lots of relatives that are objecting, neither of them has actually come to me specifically to say anything because they know that's not on. And the fact is, I also know all the people quite well who are planning to have solar farms on their properties.
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. Now I'm going to ask you to vote on that motion, which is up before you up on the screen. Those in favour of that? Against? So against is Councillor Quinn and myself, and all others in favour. That's been carried. Thank you. I just remind you, councillors, that we have Councillor Wise here, who is the minute taker for us. Sorry, Ms. Wise. Sorry, just thrown off my course here. You're taking wind out of my sails too. I just ask you to be patient. She's not overly familiar with dealing with the way we deal with things. That's what I want to say.
Out of practice, Madam Mayor.
Yes. Now, item number 2, notice of motion, support provided by council to medical practitioners in the Shire. Councillor Shule.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I decided to put the notice of motion forward to this meeting to, as I've said, to clarify and have it a bit more transparent in the community. After the November meeting, I was thinking a little bit more about it. We were told that, Henty, the council, provided the house for the GP, but there's a little bit more background to that. And then I also had a resident ratepayer speaking to me one day, casual sort of talk before Australia Day, that in regards to the retiring doctor, and she said, and council just has to give us a house so that we can then get a new doctor. And I answered by saying, well, no, council doesn't have to give you a house. We will do what we can, and each situation in each town is different. So I just thought we need a bit more clarity that a lot of the people just think it happens, and it doesn't just happen. So that's why I've asked for a bit more detailed report. We could have a complete change of councillors and staff by the end of the year, who knows. And to have it all in one spot as a quick reference, we may have a new councillor over there. It might be easier for referring back in the future if something needs to be provided in the health industry. I just thought it'd make it a bit clearer. Like for, some towns are dare I say it, more forward-thinking or are quite well known as being forward-thinking communities. And look at Walla, there's been a local family sort of organised the pharmacy and the consulting rooms for the visiting doctor there. Henty's, back in 2004, there were 2 families that donated a significant amount of money to help purchase the block, or they did purchase the block, and then the Bendigo Bank also donated a significant amount to match that money, and then council built the house. So there are sometimes circumstances that is not quite clear in the community, and I just felt it was important with the changing times that it be all compiled and put together in one spot, and then if there's any questions, there's a quick reference to clarify. Thank you. And do I move that now?
Yes, please.
I'd like to move that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Quinn, you wish to speak?
Just backing up what Councillor Shield said, I think it's very important that we have as much information as we can get, so that when the information is presented, the public can see it. And I think it's the medical facilities and the financial facilities are the 2 of the biggest things that the Shire face at present.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Meyer?
A simple statement, Madam Mayor, in terms of a request. At the time when I first got into council, we were building the community centre in Henty, and I remember one of my first roles was to gain some extra money from council to put into that building, because the shortfall had been brought about by something after everybody else in the community and the bank had contributed. I think we were $38,000 short, and council as such resolved to put that money in to enable a project to be finished. I think that's the sort of thing that also need to be brought into the argument, because I don't really know where all the money came from to start with, but I know that there was 38,000 came at that finish.
Yeah, look, that's you're correct, Councillor Meyer, but all those particular issues will be brought out in that report that comes back. So, including what was acquired and where the money come from. Well, no, I think it was actually 80,000 the council put in and 40,000. Look, it'll all be in report, but I think 40,000 come out of the sale of each hostels, the Holbrook and the Gender Hostel. But look, we'll bring the report back, and then it'll be clear on the public record.
Thank you. Councillor Parker?
I support the motion completely, but I just sometimes I find that we get caught up with where the money's come from and where it's going, and I don't think it should be defining us moving forward. That's just a statement. Sorry.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Shield, do you wish to speak again?
Oh, just thank you for listening, and it's not meant to be dividing anybody or doing that, Councillor Parker, but it's just, I think if those sort of comments are coming from the community now, I just felt there was a need to explain a bit more. Local government traditionally hasn't been involved in healthcare, it's more a state matter, but there are circumstances, and like I said, life's changing every week at the moment, and we don't know what's next, and we do support whatever we can in whatever community, but each situation is different, and sometimes a little bit of clarity helps. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour? All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Officers' reports, environment and planning. Item number 1, modification development application.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks, seconded. Councillor Quinn, do you wish to speak?
No.
No. Speakers, for or against? For or against? Councillor Parker?
Do we just need to have a bit more clarity on, what manufacturing's being done up at that business, please?
Mr. Kane, can you clarify that, please?
Well, that's a tricky one, Madam Mayor, in the sense that this is just a modification. I've isolated my thinking on this matter just to the modification at hand and then the objection to that modification. So the modification was the change of hours starting 1 hour earlier and using a shed at the back of the building, and then I turned my mind to the objection that was received in relation to that. So I didn't revisit the whole. I haven't revisited the whole application. I haven't reconsidered what was applied for originally in what they were going to manufacture and what they weren't going to manufacture. I could do it quickly if you wanted to, Madam Mayor, but I could say that I haven't had any. We have, as I said in my report, we have had 2 complaints that I'm aware of in the time that that the proponent for the modification has been operating. And look, I think one of them was, as I said, was working on a bulldozer in the early hours of the morning, well, earlier than their operating times, but I think that there was a bit of extenuating circumstances in that time. That's what.
Once, but it wasn't always.
Well, look, that at that particular time, that was what was decided, that it was necessary because there was extenuating circumstances and the need for that bulldozer. We did have another complaint about noise generally, and Council's ranger visited the site and gave some instructions, and since then we haven't had any complaints. My viewpoint about the use of the site is that the infrastructure was there in the terms of the workshop, which would be attractive to somebody who wanted to start up and utilise that infrastructure. People have got different capacities when they start a business. You know, some people have got a lot of resources and others haven't. So that's the nature of business. They have to look at what's available to best suit their business. And in my viewpoint, I think that site could be reflected in hundreds of towns in Australia. In that similar location, similar activities, I think you would find that in many situations. And personally, I think it's not out of keeping with that site. There was a former service station across the road. The infrastructure was there. What was going to happen with it anyway? It would just go derelict. So I think this is a better alternative than that. My opinion, I think the modification is pretty minor, and as I recommend, it should be supported.
Any other comments or questions?
Just more of a comment. I think having a metal fabrication, there's always going to be a lot of noise, and when you're handling metal and heavy equipment. But with the modifications, I think that's a good start. And they're a young couple and they're having a go.
Thank you. Prepared to vote, councillors? Those in favour? Against? Councillor Parker and myself against. All others in favour. That has been passed. Councillors, thank you. Item number 2, development application for an extractive industry at Wollongong.
I'll second that.
Councillor Meyer and Councillor Hicks. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Meyer?
Madam Mayor, it's one of the prolonged problems of local government, finding the right sort of stuff to put on our roads to make things work properly. If this one offers us the opportunity, we'd be fools not to take it. Simple.
Really? Not quite so simple, I think. Are there any other comments or questions, councillors?
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Quinn.
Through you to the director, will we be able to source gravel out of this pit if it happens?
Well, I think that's more likely that we'll be able to source gravel out of the pit. From what I'm told from my colleague is that he won't source gravel from gravel pits that don't have a DA.
Just wanted that to be made clear. I thought that was the case. It's as Councillor Meyer says, it's pretty smart to Yes.
Another comment or any, Councillor Shule?
Was just with the heavy vehicles on the Gingelic Road. I was just wondering about bus routes. Is that going to be affected with the times of operation?
I believe there's only one bus that goes over the top of the gap there, so it's only going to be limited. Like, there's only 30 vehicle movements a week they're predicting out of it, so it'll be rarely that they're going to be impacted.
Thank you. And there was something else. I just wondered with, just had in mind from a number of years ago, with quarries, I was thinking more on the line, isn't there more of a restriction on expanding with the environmental people, or how does that go now? Because I remember, or was that just private property owners that couldn't go bigger and bigger, but they could go down?
No, your memory's serving you well. This one is right on the maximum that they can go before they trigger further environmental assessment to occur. So they can go bigger, but they would go, then they would need an environmental impact statement, which is far more detailed study of the impacts of the activity. And then they would also be licensed with the EPA, and the EPA would become the regulator. So there's quite a step up after you cross this tipping point at 2 hectares and 30,000 tonnes per year to a bigger quarry.
That's what my next comment was. It was just the 2 hectares, then that's the maximum. Yep, thank you.
Councillor Weston?
Madam Mayor, a question to Mr Blackie. Has the council used this material in the past, and are we likely to use it in the future?
I can't be 100% confident we used it in the past, because I have heard, obviously before my time at council, they did utilise it on some construction projects, but I can't 100% guarantee that. In regards to the future, well, we're obviously hoping that some grant applications will allow us to do some reconstruction of Gingelic Road, and this material will be suitable for some components. It's obviously it's got its limitations, but it's obviously good for other purposes, and I could see some use definitely on the project. To what degree, I can't say, but it definitely would be able to use some of it for sure. But it all depends on them putting an appropriate pricing regime and everything else that will go through our tendering process.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment or question? No. I do have some concerns about the management of the dust, particularly with the person who has lodged an objection, and I hope that they are considered when the work is being done. And also noise as well, but noise is a more difficult one, but certainly dust, I think, has the potential to be a bit difficult. Anyway, I'm going to put that motion. It is up there on the screen. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? 3 against. Councillor Shulg, Parker and myself. All others in favour. Therefore, the motion has been carried. Thank you. Item number 3, the development application for subdivision 3-lot community title subdivision.
I'll move the recommendation to get the debate happening.
Second.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks and Councillor Shulg moved and seconded. Do you wish to speak?
Against the resolution, Madam Mayor.
Do you wish to speak, Councillor Hicks?
Yeah, I was just going to ask the director what the legal aspects are of this subdivision. It seems a little out of the ordinary to me. I know I've read the report, but just a little bit more clarification would be helpful.
Well, I'd like to assure Councillor Hicks that I think approving it would be completely legal. I wouldn't recommend something that wouldn't be, in my mind, for sure. So I think it's completely legal. it's just about whether councillors are mindful of the merits of the application. I think I'll just take an opportunity, Madam Mayor. When I looked at the situation as it was put in the application, and I considered what was there now, I weighed up the merits in my own mind and then thought, if it was approved, was there the opportunity to put some conditions of consent on there that actually might improve the situation? Because the alternative of refusing the application is that you'll get left with what's there, okay? So you've got a dwelling there that's accesses the lane, it's got poor orientation and it's not fenced. So all of those things in my mind couldn't be changed. That's going to stay if the application is refused. But if the application is passed and they want to do the additional work and put that extra dwelling there, then that opens the opportunity up to impose some conditions of consent that might change the present outcome. So in doing so, I thought that would open up the opportunity to provide some fencing around that existing house and provide some fencing down that laneway to prevent the new lot using the laneway. So I'm maintaining the status quo, but in terms of the access, that's undeniable, but that can't change. But I am providing some fencing around that house and asking them to establish a car parking area. So I think that would be a betterment for those people that would reside there, plus also for the people who use the laneway. So they were factors in my mind, and I'm almost certain that I've said that, well, I'm certainly of the opinion that any future house that would have to go on the new lot 2 would only be able to be orientated towards 2nd Avenue and present to the street, and actually might improve the appearance of the lot from 2nd Avenue. So it certainly couldn't make it any worse. It could only get better in my mind. A house orientated towards the street on that small lot, facing that way, with a garden assuming in front, would be better than what's there now. So all of those things entered in my mind when I've come up with this recommendation, councillors. So.
Thanks, Mr. Kane. Councillor Meyer.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I always believe the greatest asset we have in any community is the people that live there. We wouldn't have towns if we didn't have them. And there's sufficient number of people around that particular block who have gone out of their way, including Councillor Ross, who's addressed the meeting tonight, to make it known to me how they feel about not having that block occupied. It purely and simply probably doesn't suit the rest of the area. I'd like to step back a minute to early history and ask everybody, why do we have back lanes in Henty and Culcan and some other places? They served one purpose, and that purpose was before we put sewerage pipes in. That's the only purpose that we have back lanes in these towns. And should we be putting houses on them with frontages to that back lane? I don't believe so, nor do any of the other residents who live around that particular spot. So I'm left with nothing else to think except to oppose it on the basis that at the moment we don't know what else can be put there to improve it. I'll oppose it on the basis that maybe down the track there can be another thing thought about it to improve what they want to do, or be more specific about what they want to put there. But we shouldn't have a back lane as the frontage to somebody's house. There's no provision in the plans where they're going to park vehicles and half a dozen other things that should be there. So at the moment, my thought is that on behalf of those residents around this particular building place, we say no. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Meyer. Is there a speaker in favour? No?
Question, Madam Mayor, to the planner. If council declines, what can the applicant do?
Well, they can take it to the Land and Environment Court. Every refused application has the ability to take it to the Land and Environment Court and appeal council's decision. That's the avenue. Or they can ask council. They can ask council to reconsider their decision. There is the ability to do that as well.
Speakers for?
Sorry, Councillor
Speaker for?
Oh, no, sorry.
Against?
I was questions. There's a lot of. I found there was a lot of inconsistencies, and I just needed some clarification. I think we need more clarification.
Well, we might need to.
Well, I might move an amendment then.
Can I just ask a question of the last? Sorry. You said that they could ask us to reconsider, or they could take us to the tribunal. How can they do so when the plans that they submitted to council was that the house was going to be in the middle of the block? Would they have a leg to stand on? Because it's now not in the middle of the block, which is why we're having this conversation.
I would think that, well, that decision is a separate planning matter that occurred 15 years ago. And look, I reviewed the file and I'm not sure as to the outcome of how that happened. But as I said, it has happened. The dwelling's there. It's sat there for 15 years and council can't change that outcome now.
Councillor Hicks, you want to
Well,
propose an amendment?
Well, I was just going to suggest that perhaps we hold it over until we are supplied with some more information, some sort of a development plan or something like that from the...
Well, I think we've got all the information we should need.
Can I comment?
Yes.
I'm not sure what additional information you could get from a subdivision. So because the person's doing a subdivision, he could have two avenues. He could develop the block or not, or he could just sell that block. So if he's taking option number 2, he's not going to have any further details than what he's got. So all you get for a subdivision is what's before council now.
Councillor Schill, a couple of questions only.
Well, for a start,
Please.
if we turned our books upside down, you get a better vision of the actual way it's facing in the street. The lane where the house is on the western end of the lane, so you see the narrow part of the street. That little skinny sausage on the side near the lane that is referred to as Lot 1, what is that going to be? And in their application, they refer to that there is an existing, there's already an existing residence, but there's no building works are proposed. And then on the next page, they've got the new lot will gain access from 2nd Avenue. There's a lot of, discrepancies, I feel. It just doesn't sort of sit right. I just wondered what on earth they were going to do with that little metre wide strip. And then are there 2 titles? Can they sell it? Or are they just dividing it ready to build something on there?
Mr. Kane, can you answer any of those?
I certainly can, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Now, in community title subdivision, you must have a neighbourhood lot. Okay, that's a requirement of community title. And quite often in 2-lot subdivisions, I've seen that they might have a metre by metre square where the mailbox sits. That's just the nature of community title, the way it's written. So this neighbourhood lot is to fulfil that need that you must have this shared allotment. And I inquired with the surveyors as to what it's going to be used for, and they said it's to be an electrical easement for the back lot. So that's obviously where that existing services is now, and they're going to run it down there. And they may use it for other services as well. But that's all it is. I don't think it's anything sinister, lot number 1. It's just that it's required that you've got to have this shared lot to be able to have community title.
It was just the way it was referred to, and I thought, well, what can you do with that? But that appears to be where all the services are, or utilities are, in that area.
Yeah, and look, in the application they've said that they're going to present to 2nd Avenue and they're going to have a driveway off 2nd Avenue, and I think that's good. Look, if it was to go ahead, that's certainly what you would want. You don't want them coming off that laneway.
And the size of the property that they may build, does it mean on page, sorry, Madam Mayor, page 30 under the Community Land Development Act, it sort of says require under the clause 4 of 1989, requirements of the lots to be a minimum lot size does not apply. So that's almost saying, well, it doesn't matter what you have.
That's how the state government's drafted it. So that same rule that you have a minimum lot size and but then you can not follow that for strata title and community title subdivisions. It's a different type of subdivision that we don't have a lot of, admittedly, in our shire, but we do get the occasional one. Can be smaller than that to accommodate different housing options. Often smaller houses, villas, things like that are strata and community title. But that same rule, it would be in all LEPs, standing instrument LEPs in New South Wales. It's just drafted by the New South Wales Planning Department. So it is what it is.
All right, councillors, we do have a motion and I think we need to move on. Councillor Hicks, you were foreshadowing an amendment.
I think we'll just run with that, how it's written now.
With the motion that you've seconded. Did you second?
I thought I moved that one.
Moved and seconded. All right, I'm going to ask you to vote, councillors. Those in favour? 2 in favour, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Hicks. Against? So that's the rest of us? Yeah, 6. So we have to put up a reason?
I think one of the main reasons, as far as I'm concerned, Madam Mayor, of declining it is that they've got to come back and be a little bit more specific, so that it's quite clear. And you know, I'm not throwing them right out to the wind. I just want to see it a bit clearer.
Yes, I actually think we need more clarity on the proposal. No, it's a bit up the air, I think. We need to have a reason. Expand a little bit. Yeah, let's get that. Just trying to. Did everybody read that?
So we might quickly read it out.
Do you want me to explain those, maybe? Or you can just read them out.
Yeah, I think we understand. The application be refused for the following reasons. 1, under section 4.15 of the Environment Planning Assessment Act 1979, proposal does not satisfy the objectives for the RU5 village zone in Greater Hume LEP 2012 because it fails to protect the amenity of residents. Item number 2, under the Act, the proponent has not demonstrated to the satisfaction of council that the development is consistent with the built environment of Henty. 3, that council considers the development is not in the public interest because of the continuation of the use of the adjacent laneway for the access to lot 3. 4, the development may well have an unreasonable adverse social impact on residents in the locality. 5, the development is contrary to the objects of the EPNA Act in that it will not result in an orderly planning outcome. Those 5 items there. So do we need a mover for that? We've refused it. So the application has been refused along the following, for the following reasons.
No. Well, have we had a motion that it be reviewed?
Yes. All right, we can
I
proceed.
would think they would just be the reasons behind that motion.
You what?
They'd be just the reasons behind that motion.
Attached to the motion. Yep, that's fine.
So
motion
be refused.
be refused.
I'll move accordingly, Madam Mayor.
And the reasons for refusal has just been outlined by yourself.
Yeah. All right. Councillor Meyer will move. And a seconder, please. Councillor Weston. Thank you. Do you wish to speak any further?
Madam Mayor, I think the outlines are very obvious to anybody who takes the time to read them through, that they are looking after the amenity of local residents above and beyond all else.
Thank you. Any speakers against? No. Councillor Quinn?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think the conditions that are attached are rather extreme. Over many years I've seen the RU5 zoning move left and right and centre to accommodate things, and I'm just wondering whether the conditions of refusal are so severe that they stop any further action. My intention when I voted against the recommendation was for us to see a clearer picture down the track. I think it's 5 conditions that were read out. I think they might be just...
5 reasons for refusal, Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor Quinn.
I think they might be too restrictive. I know they're straight out of the handbook, but that's just my comment.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Weston?
Madam Mayor, on number 2 up there, should it be Holbrook, not Henty? No. It is in Henty. Right, sorry.
I think we might move on. It's been moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Weston. You all prepared to vote? Those in favour of refusal? Against? Okay, against is Councillor Quinn, Councillor Hicks and Councillor O'Neill. Thank you. Item number 4, the Greater Hume Council appointments to the Southern Regional Planning Panel.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Meyer.
Madam Mayor, I have pleasure in nominating Councillor O'Neill for the position, noting that it hasn't met since about 2013, and she's only got 3 or 4 months to serve until the next election. I think she'll enjoy it.
I don't think you've got a seconder for that, did we?
I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Parker. Any speakers for or against? No. Prepared to vote those in favour? That's been carried. Thank you. All in favour? All right, councillors, we're on to governance, the delivery plan and the
So moved,
operational
Madam
plan.
Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Meyer,
Happy to
seconder.
second it.
Councillor Parker, thank you. Questions, comments, wish to speak? No. Councillor Quinn?
Question, Madam Mayor, to the GM, the Jacob Wednesday Drive, the 4 blocks, have they got the titles?
Councillor Meyer.
Councillor Meyer, turn.
There's 4 blocks being settled, and there's 2 further lots that are under contract.
The question was, have they got the titles?
Well, they wouldn't have been able to settle without the titles, Councillor Quinn. The blocks have been sold and settled. Yes, they've got the titles.
That's all I wanted to know. You could have
it's-
answered it very simply, Mr GM.
Any other comments or questions, councillors? It's a very comprehensive report. Certainly makes us sit up and take notice. Councillor Parker? No? Prepared to vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item number 2, tender of the construction of the proposed multi-purpose sports
I'll move the
facility.
recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks and Councillor Parker. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Hicks?
No.
No? Councillor Parker?
Yes, please.
Please.
I just wanted to probably reassure council that I'm very confident that the Holbrook community will support the shortfall in a fundraising effort, which they've already formed a committee to do so. And I'd also just like to raise your attention to the fact that between the football netball club, the gym, the show society and the cricket clubs, they have managed to gain grants and community input of about $680,000 already. And once this facility is complete, there would have been nearly $3 million spent on that, on the sports facility. And I commend both the community groups, but also our general manager, because they have worked for many years to make this happen.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Yes, they certainly have. When it comes to fruition, it'll be fantastic. Do you wish to speak?
No, I'm impressed with what they've done, Madam Mayor. I wish everybody else around was doing the same.
Yes, the community's worked long and hard, and it's going to be a great facility, not only for here but for our shire, and it's utilised by old and young people, right across the spectrum. A lot of young people in all of those sporting groups. It's
I might have
fantastic.
one question, Madam Mayor. Why did the General Manager check up on the Howling sports ground today? Or yesterday, did it have something that we should know about? Or?
It's a little bit out of the reason for this report, but look, it was really to the Howling sports ground has undergone a playing surface rehabilitation probably 8 or 9 years ago, with the same grass that's being used on the grounds here. So look, there was myself and the Director of Engineering and the project engineer that's looking after this project, plus some of our Parks and Garden staff went down there to speak with the, if you like, their Parks and Gardens overseer, or he's probably a little bit higher up the chain than that, to get an idea about how to maintain it once it's established. And it was very worthwhile visit, I think it would be fair to say, and probably should thank Federation Council for the generous use of their resources to provide the information to us, and they were very giving of their time, and have offered to continue to provide us with advice and guidance, over the next couple of years.
I'll mention it to him next week, Mr. General Manager.
Yes,
I'm sure
that's
his chest will puff right out.
Yes, that's fantastic. All right, we do have a mover and a seconder for that. Any further comment? Sorry, Councillor.
Successful tender, Madam Mayor, are they just a Wodonga-based company, or they are Wodonga structured, or?
They're a Wodonga-based company. As I've said in the report, they've predominantly been a home builder. I did check out their referees, and one of them was for a substantial refurbishment of a large motel in Albury, which the particular person was quite glowing in his response, and felt that he didn't have any concerns that they'd be able to undertake a building of this nature. So, whilst they're not overly experienced in commercial buildings, I guess everyone's got to start somewhere.
All right, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? That's been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item Corporate and Community Services, item number 1, the quarterly budget.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Meyer and Councillor Parker, any comments, questions, or?
I probably have a question to the General Manager, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'm trying to put it together. We've come through times that the country has never ever seen before, and we've still got more to go. rates are going to, and it's pointed out here, it's going to reflect. We've talked for some time about appointing people to write grants or putting on a proper grants writer. Has that ever been taken any further?
Well, look, no, it hasn't. And look, shortly, when I say shortly, in the next 10 days, we'll provide you with the preliminary budget workshop paper. And basically what that says is that we're doing quite well in relation to getting external funds in to do capital works, be it roadworks or other works. So that's not necessarily our problem at the moment. Our problem at the moment is that our revenue to fund our operational expenditure, through generally no fault of our own, is being squeezed, or some of the expenditure that is outside our capacity to control is rising, which is going to provide us with, as I said in my performance review document, significant financial headwinds for council over the next 4 or 5 years. You know, I think it's something that we're going to have a good look at, you know, in this year's budget of at least putting some short-term things in place that will enable us to get through the next 4 or 5 years, because the way our budget's been structured, we've always been a bit reliant on interest from investments, and you know, obviously they've plummeted, as we know, and you know, combined with things like you know, the rate peg we predicted, you know, last year. Well, I think last year it was 2.6, and look, when we did our forward estimates, we based it on about 2.6. It's come in at 1.3, 2%. Financial assistance grants, much the same. The last few years we've probably got between 3 and 4%. This year the increase is 1.3. All those things have had an impact on our revenue streams for our operations, but not our capital works. So putting on a grant writer is going to increase our operational costs when we've already got a significant problem funding our operations. So look, whilst a grant officer would be great, we just can't fund one at the moment. It's not within our capabilities.
Yeah, I accept all the reasons for it, but there are people out there in the community, little organisations, who are sweating on something like that happening. You did pretty well in the last year by using general staff to make applications to other organisations. You know, there'll come a time when they're sick of doing it too.
Well, they probably already are, and look, I know that the person sitting beside me would be absolutely delighted if I put on a grants person, because it takes up a considerable amount of her time at the moment, providing advice and support and letters of support, and I guess guidance around, you know, putting the applications in. But as I've said, you know, we can discuss it further at the budget workshop, but we just can't afford it.
The other part of the question I wanted to ask you, and the Mayor were appointed to go and see Justin Clancy to discuss emergency services levy. Has that taken place, or any result indicated?
Well, myself and Mr. Smith went to see the local member probably 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
The Mayor was unavailable on that particular day. Mr. Smith put together a very good paper on 2 issues around the emergency services levy. The local member has undertaken to take that up on our behalf, but part of that submission was reinforcing with Mr. Clancy the level of opposition that was forthcoming at the Local Government New South Wales Conference in relation to the emergency services levy, and that's, you know, that's another one of the issues that's, you know, assuming that the state government is not going to provide a rebate for the emergency services levy this year, like it alone will probably cost council upwards of $200,000 next year compared to this year, an additional $200,000. So it's those sorts of headwinds that, you know, we've got real challenges with over the next 4 or 5 years. You know, when things get back to normal a bit and interest rates get up to, you know, the new norm, whatever that is, might be, I don't know, 2 or 3 or maybe % or a bit more. Yeah, and you know, if the CPI rises are greater than 1.3%, then those things will help, but they're a few years away. So we've got to work out how we get from 2021 to say 2025 and protect our reserves to some extent to ensure that we don't fritter all of those away, just in case we have another issue that arises in 2025 or 2028 that, you know, we need some reserves behind us.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was good. Any other comments or questions, councillors? No? I ask you to vote. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Unanimously. Item number 3, I think Councillor Hicks, are you involved in this one?
No, we've got number 2, number 3.
Oh, sorry.
And then number 4 I'm out.
Sorry.
2.
Policy development.
Yeah,
Got it off.
That's it?
Happy to move it.
Okay, there's a recommendation.
I'll
Councillor
second
Parker. Councillor Hicks seconded. Or any comments? No? Prepared to vote. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Where are we? Closure and sale of the unused section of road, Nation Road.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn and Councillor Hicks. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Quinn?
It's all set out in the report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, councillors? Any opposition? I declare that carried. Thank you. Where are we? Item number 4, the closure and sale of unused section of road at Culcairn.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn, seconder. Seconder? No. Seconder, anyone?
Second it for the purpose for discussion.
Thank you. Councillor Shulk. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Quinn?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's all laid out in that report, who the appropriate authorities are, etc., etc. I recommend that my fellow councillors look at the report and vote with it. There's nothing else. If you can't understand what's printed, well,
Thank you.
I can't help you.
Thank you. Councillor Meyer.
Madam Mayor, I choose to speak against the report. Councillor Quinn mentioned that everybody who thinks there's somebody who's got their name on the paper approving it, the ones that you haven't asked are all the locals who live around it. The ones you haven't asked are all those who attended a fire there just before Christmas or just after Christmas, where that road was a necessary point to get access to that fire and control it thereafter. For that reason, at the moment, I'm prepared to stand against the recommendation and vote against it accordingly.
Thank you. Speaker 4. Councillor Quinn.
I'll close the debate and keep it short.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the concept of a fire vehicle getting through this road is complete nonsense. If anybody had a look, they'll find out that a four-wheel motorbike can't get through the woody trees. I understand the politics around the table, but it won't stop the development if the Neon gets the go-ahead. But the sad part about it is that the Rural Fire Service have said they've got no problems.
Thank you. Going to ask you to vote. Those in favour? 2 in favour, Councillors Quinn and myself. Those against? Councillor Meyer, Weston, O'Neill, Gill and Parker. Therefore the motion is lost. Thank you. Item number 5, the Gendra Pony Club, licensed Crown Reserve.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you,
Second that
Councillor
motion.
Meyer. Councillor Schill, do you wish to speak? No.
All printed, it's all printed in the report, Madam Mayor, that they get a 5-year tender with another 5-year option.
Yep, fair enough. All those in favour? Pardon? Mar and,
That was
no,
Queen
that,
and Shield.
Queen and Shield. Yeah, sorry. All in favour? Yes, unanimously in favour. Thank you. Gifting of loan from the Oval refurbishments. Goodness,
Happy to move
Councillor
the-
Parker.
Happy to move. I'll second that.
Councillors Parker and Shield. Moved and seconded. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Parker?
Just to ask the question, so if the Holbrook loan is in Holbrook, that the people that have requested some loan, not ones that just come and get some loan, they'll be notified accordingly.
Yes, they will be notified. They're all sending correspondence if needed, and they're listed there, and they'll be advised that they can come and acquire it once we're finished with what's needed.
Any other comments? No. Prepared to vote those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I think that's a great idea, actually. Item to be referred to closed committee, item number 1. That'll be Councillor Parker and Councillor Meyer. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Number 2, the notice of mayoral minute. That's to go to the closed committee also.
Yep,
Councillor
happy.
Parker and Councillor Meyer. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We've got some receiver notes here. Officers' reports, governance, community services. That's a very extensive. Thank you. Councillor Meyer moved. Councillor Parker seconded. It's a very comprehensive investment account summary. I think I've got something noted over here. Yes, on page number 89 of 105, just a reminder, the workshop briefing session dates to be noted. As always, we like to keep our Wednesdays free, and if we don't use them, then you can kick up your heels.
So just a reminder that Mr Blackie has got the paper for the preliminary roads workshop with him tonight. So please make sure that you don't go home before you get a copy.
Madam Mayor, before we move out of general business, I'd like to ask one question, please.
Yes, well, we need to have a mover and seconder, I think, for these documents. Did we have one?
Mover and seconder for parts B
and C
and D. Was
Okay.
Councillor Meyer and Councillor Parker.
Right. So, have we got any further comments or questions? If not, I ask you to vote. Those in favour that they be received. Thank you.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Do you
before we move.
question?
It would appear that most of the solar plants or most of the solar farms or most of the solar facilities, using the word that was indicated we should be using, will probably go ahead. Who becomes the authority who oversees the development to make sure all the things are done properly? Is it council or is it?
I'll ask Mr Kane to respond to that. Thank you.
The Department of Planning. The Department of Planning have a compliance team for major projects, and they'll be responsible for following through on their DA that they issue, not council. Council would have some requirements under the Protection of the Environment Operations Act, as the ARA under that act, but that's the extent of it. So that's a different act, that's the Environment Act, because they're not licensed with the EPA, so they by default they fall to council. So yeah.
We don't have to find a replacement for you.
No, you definitely don't. That's not a hard question to answer.
All right, councillors, keep your eye on the ball. I'm going to close the ask for. no matters of urgency? No, I don't think
No.
so. No, so I'm going to advise that the live stream of the meeting will be paused, so the confidential section of the meeting will be held in camera. And that's at 7 juncture. We're all back in gear. Is the live stream going? Very good, thank you. Yes. Okay. Now, I wish to report that the expression of interest and recommendation regarding the purchase of 124 Aubrey Street, Holbrook, has been approved. And item number 1, the Merrill Minute regarding the General Manager's performance review was approved also. Thank you. And I now need, we've done the recommendation to reconvene, and I need a recommendation that the foregoing report and recommendation from the closed committee be adopted. Councillor Parker and Councillor Schill, all in favour? Carried, thank you. There being no further business, the meeting concluded at 7:30 p.m. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance this evening. The meeting is closed.